re-elected to the NEC of the ANC in Polokwane, and in 2009 I was appointed as Minister of Communications. 2010 I was dropped as Minister of Communications and became an ordinary member of Parliament, and I left Parliament in 2014 after the new elections. I did not elect to go back into Parliament and to government service.
Thank you.
I seem to have heard you to say you retired as Chief of the Defense Force in 1995. Did I hear correctly?
2025.
Yeah, I think you meant, because I thought it would have been quite quick. So, but I think you said 1995, but you must have meant 2005. Yeah, okay, thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Turning then to your statement, you indicate, as you've just testified, that you are appointed to the National Executive Committee of the ANC in December 2007, and you served until December 2012.
No, in the National Executive Committee, I served until 2014.
2014.
A new executive was elected in Bloemfontein, or Mangaung.
Please refer to your statement as SN1, SN01 to be precise. At the second line, you state that I was a member of the African National Congress National Executive Committee from December 2007 until December 2012. Would you have us?
No. This was in cabinet as 2012. 2012.
Well, isn't the position that the ANC had its own elective conference in 2012 in Mangaung?
No, it's 2014, so that is not correct.
Is it not the national elections in the country that were in 2014 and the ANC national elections, ANC elections, not national, ANC elections in Mangaung in 2012?
It is.
2012 is ANC
National
Conference.
December.
Yeah. Okay, all right.
Okay.
And then the elections of the country in 2014.
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
So you ceased to be a member of the NEC at that elective conference in December 2012,
yes,
according to your statement. You state, now, your statement to the Commission specifically refers to an announcement or declaration made by Mr. Madula in a particular NEC meeting. Is that correct?
Correct.
Now, can you briefly state to the chairperson at which NEC meeting was the declaration made?
As I say in the statement, Chair, it was following the cabinet reshuffle of October 2010. I can't recall the exact meeting of the African National Congress, NEC, where this meeting took place, where Madula made this declaration. But it was certainly in 2011, following that cabinet reshuffle.
Yes. Now, you sat through Mr. Manuel's evidence this morning.
Yes, I did.
Mr. Manuel stated that that meeting was in August 2011. Does that assist in prompting your recollection in any way?
No, it does not. I was rummaging through documentation following consultation about trying to establish exactly when this meeting took place. And I take notes. I used to take notes at NEC meetings. I could not find that meeting where Mr. Madula said what he said at that meeting, except for the fact that I remember, or through that documentation, I established that there was there were elections in 2011 for the local government. There were local government elections, And so it is unlikely that we could have sat through and discussed this matter so early in the year, because normally meetings of the African National Congress executive take place quarterly. But we do meet from time to time. We do meet either in December or in January to prepare for the January 8th statement. And then we meet again to prepare for Cabinet Mehrotra, which is again just before there is a State of the Nation by the President to prepare for the Cabinet Mehrotra. We meet as the ANC to prepare for that. So it's an extended meeting which involves directors general who might be called to that meeting and premiers who are ANC premiers to that meeting to prepare for the Cabinet Mehrotra, which then involves premiers whether they are ANC or not ANC. So it is possible that we might have had more meetings which dealt with specific issues and did not delve into the issue that Madula raised at a subsequent meeting.
Thank you, Chair. Now, before we get to the detail of Mr. Madula's declaration, could you briefly state how traditionally these NEC meetings were conducted?
Well, I had been a member of the NEC before, but that was before we went into government. I was elected into the NEC in Durban at our first conference of the African National Congress internally. So those meetings were different from the meetings which took place subsequently when I became a member of the NEC in 2007, December, because then ANC was in government. So these meetings, the meetings in my recollection, which took place when I became a member of the NEC again, were different from those that we had when Mandela was the president of the African National Congress. The meetings took place, there was a suggestion from some of the members of the NEC that the president opens the meeting and closes the meeting. There was some debate about it, but some members of the ANC pushed for this, that the president, who was then Jacob Zuma, opens the meetings and closes the meetings. He gives a political input, and then we debate the political input, put our own inputs, discuss things that perhaps he may not have raised, and then discuss them, and then the president, at the end of the meeting, then summarizes for the salient points of that meeting to the rest of the NEC.
And that method pertained right through the 5 years you served in the NEC?
Exactly, Chair.
Now, let's turn to the actual declaration made by Mr. Madula at the NEC meeting of 2011, accepting that you don't remember exactly which one it was in 2011. You deal with that in your statement, but just state in your own words what actually transpired.
Well, what transpired is that Madula told the meeting, I can't remember the context in which this matter was discussed by him, or this revelation was made by him, except that he made such a revelation that he was approached by the Guptas and told that he would become Minister of Sport before he actually knew, before he was informed by the executive authority, by the president, that he would become the Minister of Sport. And indeed, he was appointed to that position. And he was saying so because he was upset by such a revelation coming from people who had no business to know that he was going to become anything in cabinet, because he had been Deputy Minister of Police at the time that he was told that he was going to become minister, a full cabinet minister.
Now, we heard this morning the evidence of Mr. Manuel that as he made that declaration, Mr. Mbalula cried, and in an open letter which is annexed to Mr. Manuel's statement, which was issued by Mr. Mbalula, he does not appear to deny that he cried at that meeting. Do you have a recollection of that?
No, I'm not as sentimental as Mr. Manuel, and I have no recollection of tears there.
Okay. Now, is it your testimony that when Mr. Mbalula informed the meeting as such, that what he was informed of by the Gupta brothers was his impending appointment to precisely the Minister of Sports and Recreation, or was it just generally to become a minister?
My recollection is that he knew exactly where he was going, that he was going to become a Minister of Sport.
And it's common cause that he subsequently was?
Yes, that's what he was saying, that's what he told the meeting. They told me I was going to become the Minister of Sport, and indeed I was appointed to Minister of Sport.
And he was appointed to that position during a reshuffle in October 2010, on the 31st of October 2010 to be precise.
Exactly, Chair.
At the time, immediately prior to the reshuffle, you were a serving minister yourself.
Yes, I was a serving minister.
And for the record, you were a minister of?
I was a Minister of Communications.
Could you tell the chairperson what impact that reshuffle had on you?
Well, I was in Durban.
Maybe before we get to that one, let's go back to Mr. Mbalula speaking at the NEC. Are you able to remember how he came to talk about this issue at the NEC, that he had been told by the Guptas that he was going to be made Minister of Sport? Do you remember, or are you not able to remember what gave rise to this, to him saying this, or in terms of the issues that maybe were before the NEC?
I have no particular recollection of the context.
Yes.
As I said earlier on, the president would open the meeting with a political input.
Yes.
And then we would discuss as members of the NEC that political input.
Yes.
And also indicate things that the president perhaps would not have alluded to in his political input. And perhaps it arose in that context.
Yes. Yes.
I have no recollection of the exact context in which.
Yes, yes.
But what was remarkable to me was that Mbalula made this stunning revelation,
yes,
what was actually a criticism of the way in which he had been informed about his impending appointment. He was, in other words, disturbed by it. That is why he perhaps cried, although I don't remember the actual crying.
Well, I can tell you that in his response to Mr. Manuel's letter, where Mr. Manuel refers to this incident at the NEC and says he was crying, in his response, Mr. Mbalula himself seems to accept that he was crying, because he says Mr. Manuel didn't understand what his tears were about or what he was crying about. And then he goes on to say what he was crying about. So, but you simply say from your side you have no recollection of the crying part, yes. But you remember what he said.
I remember what he said. I remember, one of the reasons I remember is because I myself was affected by that cabinet reshuffle.
Yes.
And
yes,
I had my own suspicions about what the reasons were for our dismissal from cabinet, and I had actually tried to engage, or I had engaged the officials of the African National Congress,
yes,
to find out why it is that we were removed in the manner in which we were.
Yes.
and got no answers, and also spoke to the president himself.
Yes,
Why?
yes.
It's a statement. But I didn't get any satisfactory answer. So when Madula said this, in the midst of the undercurrents that were afoot then about the influence of this family in the affairs of government, it was for me a confirmation that in fact this was the case. It was the first confirmation that people had been told before their appointment. And I believed that he was not the only one. And the general undercurrent then, the general gossip was that people had been called to the Quotas and told beforehand that they would become ministers. And we ourselves, I had heard whispers about my possible removal from cabinet. So it was an important declaration that he made there.
So when Mr. Mbalula made this disclosure, it reminded you of what you had been concerned about yourself when you were removed, and subsequently that you were suspecting that maybe you were removed under circumstances that might involve people outside of government, or not really.
So to me, it was a confirmation that the talk that was going on about the influence of some people, or let's say the Guptas, in government affairs was actually correct, because it was a categorical statement by him.
Yes.
And I heard Mr. Manuel making a point here about whether Mbalula was upset or not,
Yes.
or whether he had been previously
He had a
involved
pre-existing relationship.
had a relationship with them. I did not know that at the time, and at the time that he made this confession, if you like, I did not have any suspicion of him having had such interactions with the Guptas before. And for me, it was just enough that he was making this disclosure to his comrades at the highest level of the African National Congress about what had happened. And I thought it was a genuine disclosure. And I didn't regard it as something that of somebody who was just now showing remorse because of a relationship that he had. Of course, Mr. Manuel may be correct in his own view, but my own view was that Mbalula was now at least, unlike other people who may have been approached before, making this declaration to the African National Congress leadership in order for them to deal with it.
So your understanding was that in making this disclosure, Mr. Mbalula was genuinely concerned about the fact that he had been told by the Guptas that he was to be made minister before the president could tell him.
He was upset.
He was upset about that, yes. And then, of course, it confirmed to you, as you have said, that this family seemed to have quite some influence on government matters.
Yes, it did.
Yeah. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Chair. In fact, you have answered the question I had posed, and just for the record, that cabinet reshuffle that saw Mr. Mbalula appointed Minister of Sports and Recreation, it is through that same reshuffle that you were dropped as Minister of Communications.
That is correct.
Now, when Mr. Mbalula makes this disclosure to the meeting, did the President at the meeting give a response to this disclosure in any form?
Not the President nor any of the officials were in that meeting, and my recollection is that all the officials were in that meeting, made any comment about that. But of course, perhaps the owners would have been on the person at whom these allegations were being made. because the person who bore responsibility for appointments to cabinet is the president. So I expected that, and also the president closes the meeting and summarizes the salient points of talks to the salient points of the meeting. And this was a very serious claim made by a member of his own executive, both in the African National Congress and in government, that, in other words, he was derelict, that he had given the role of informing, if not deciding, other people about pending appointments to his cabinet to other people. So I expected that the president of the ANC, when he closes the meeting, when he deals with that matter, when it comes to the closing of the meeting, will deal with that matter, at least respond to it, because it was a direct accusation to the president of the ANC.
How did the meeting, well, we have heard that the president of the ANC then did not react. How did other people in the meeting react to this disclosure? Was there any reaction, even if it's not everybody, some people?
I think there were people. The way, Chairman, the meetings of the ANC are conducted, if perhaps Mr. Madula was number 62 in the contributions that were being made at that time, so you'll have perhaps only 18 other people contributing, and it depends who they are, whether they would feel emboldened to engage the point that Mr. Madula made. I can't recall how many people spoke after that, but as I said, the president, what I'm sure about is that the president himself, because it's quite possible that Mr. Madula spoke right at the tail end of the discussion, or it was just a shot from the sky that he spoke about this thing. And it's quite possible that one or two people may have, but I can't recall that there were many people who spoke to that, because it was just a direct allegation against a president of the African National Congress who was sitting in that meeting. And I don't know whether, if Madula had spoken first or earlier, other people would have said, no, Mr. President, we want you to address this question. You have just had a serious allegation made against you. I think people expected the president himself to address the matter.
Well, it's quite an important thing, because I would have expected that it would have been regarded as a shocking allegation, you know. That's how I would have expected, and maybe other people would have expected that when a disclosure like that is made, you know, people would really find it quite something serious that needs to be dealt with. But you say certainly the president did not deal with it, did not react to it, and you have no recollection of anybody reacting to it at the meeting.
Yes, I think people just took it as, here is something serious that is being alleged by a member of this National Executive Committee, and it is directed specifically at the president. And perhaps it's too big for me, who comes after Madula, to speak,
yes,
to engage with.
Yes, yes.
We will wait for the president to react to such a statement that has been, such a claim, astounding claim that is being made here in these halls.
You know, Mr. Ramatlodi gave evidence here sometime last year, and one of the things he said was that the NEC was quite concerned about the friendship between the former president and the Gupta family, and was concerned that that friendship, I'm putting it in my own words, was damaging the party as well as government or the country, and that some of the members of the NEC at some stage, I can't remember which year he was talking about, but at some stage raised the issue with the former president at an NEC meeting. In fact, he said not once, he said many times it was raised. And he said those members of the NEC who raised it were saying, Mr. President, why do you not terminate this friendship with this family? And because it's not doing good to the party, it's not doing good to government. And he said the response of the former president was that, well, this family helped my children or helped my family, I can't remember exactly which one, when nobody would help them or when they needed help. And he said that is where the issue would end each time. Do you recall anything like that during the time when you were a member of the NEC? And it may be that it was after you had left the NEC, because I can't remember when Mr. Ramatlodi said that was.
When I was in the NEC, the issue may have arisen, and perhaps that's a context in which Mr. Madula then made that claim. But I think Mr. Ramatlodi refers to a period at which I was no longer in the African National Congress executive.
Yes.
But when we were pursuing the matters outside of the ANC, because I think the general members of the ANC, I think it refers to a later period.
Yes.
When we were also engaging with the ANC about what we saw as the pernicious influence of this family.
Okay. No, thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Now, at the time Mr. Mbalula made this disclosure, what was your understanding? Was it his attempt to place the matter officially before the highest body of the party to discuss the problem, or what did you understand the purpose of this disclosure to be?
For me, it was just a disclosure. Because I can't recall the context, I just recall the actual statement that he made to the NEC. I can't perhaps deal with that. For me, the most important thing was that he made such a claim in front of, and he made a claim about something that was being whispered in the corridors. And everybody sat up when that happened to say, at last, here is somebody who is validating the things that are being said about the president and his relationship with the Gupta family.
You indicated that in that meeting present were officials of the party. Are we talking about the top six? When you say officials, is that who you're referring to? And to your recollection, who was present at the meeting of the top six when this disclosure was made?
All the officials.
Serving at the time?
Serving at the time, yes.
And is the chairperson to understand that none of them took up the issue when Mr. Mbalula made the disclosure?
None of them. Nobody took up the discussion, except from the, and it would have surprised me if they took up the issue, because the president himself was going to close that meeting, and there was no push, even subsequent to that, for this matter to be discussed. This matter was never put on the table of on the agenda of the ANC executive, even in subsequent meetings.
Well, you have answered another question that I was going to ask you about whether subsequent to that NEC meeting, the matter was ever raised again. And as I understand you, you say it was not while you were a member of the NEC. You don't recall that it was dealt with by the NEC as an issue. Is that right?
The issue of
the disclosure by Madula.
No, it was never discussed.
Yes. I am concerned about whether people who were at the NEC meeting, including the ones you refer to as the officials of the party, whether they regarded or would have regarded what Mr. Mbalula complained about at the meeting as something that was wrong if it had happened. In other words, if he was speaking the truth, that he was told by the Guptas that he was going to be made Minister of Sports, whether they would have regarded the issue or they regarded the issue as serious, that something that should not have been known outside of government got to be known outside of government according to what Mr. Mbalula said, and whether they would then have wanted to follow up to say, but this is wrong, we need to hear what the president has to say about it. How could somebody outside of government, and actually the Guptas against whom there were allegations and so on about their friendship with the former president, that they would want to know what does the president have to say about it, and once we have heard what he says, we must see what needs to be done to make sure this kind of thing doesn't happen again. So I'm concerned whether they may have been concerned about the seriousness of this allegation, and therefore whether they would have wanted to follow it up, even if at a later stage. You might or might not be able to say, but do you have anything to say about whether, I must say, about whether you, because you were a member of the NEC, whether you and the officials were concerned about the seriousness of this issue, and whether you would have wanted this issue to be looked into and dealt with properly by the NEC or by some other structure of the party?
We were obviously concerned. I think they also were obviously concerned, should have been obviously concerned, the officials. But because I was not part of the officials, I don't know whether they did discuss this.
Yes.
And discuss how to handle it. Because normally if things are discussed and decisions have to be taken going forward with respect to anything that is decided on at the NEC, then it is the office of the SG that pursues such matters, puts them on the table of the officials. I can also say that I was a member of the National Working Committee. Even in the National Working Committee, yes, it was not pursued. And subsequent NEC meetings, as I said, Chairman, did not pursue the matter. I think people took it as gospel that, in fact, this thing happened. But whether to engage in it was another matter for the people who occupied those positions in,
yes,
in the National Executive Committee or in,
yes,
in the NWC or among the officials themselves.
Yes.
Thank you, Chair. You earlier testified that even before Mr. Mbalula's disclosure, there were suspicions or rumors regarding the role the Gupta family played, in particular in relation to the president. I understood you correctly in that regard?
Yes.
Now, can you just give us a sense of what the rumors were or what the suspicions were in particular?
Shortly, that many of the decisions that are taken are taken at Saxonwood, that they have got influence on the president, the Guptas, and that therefore many of the changes that take place there, take place in cabinet are influenced by what is going on in Saxonwood, or what those people in Saxonwood want.
Now, at the time of this meeting, did you personally harbor those suspicions, or had you heard those rumors?
Yes, I heard those rumors. I was also dumped from cabinet in 2010, at the same time as Madula was appointed. While I was in cabinet, while I was Minister of Communications, I had met, I don't know which of the brothers, because they would be there in some of the gatherings of the ANC, but I met one of them who came to my office. They made an appointment and I gave them an appointment. They came with Tutuzane Zuma, the son of the then president, and what they did was to introduce their company, Sahara Computers. And I had the officials in that little boardroom that I kept next to my office. And after that introduction, they left. And as I said, Chairman, I also had heard whispers about the impending cabinet reshuffle, and some of them were indicating that I might be dumped from cabinet. But what I know, and I've said this publicly, that I had that meeting with them, and then subsequent to that, they did try to see me again. But they didn't want to see me in my office, or that's the impression I got, because they sent people, they sent emissaries, and I will not talk about who those emissaries, but several people came to me to say, these people Guptas want to see you. And I said, they are welcome in my office. If anybody wants to discuss with me about government work, they must come to my office. So, as an afterthought, because I didn't suspect anything then, because there are many other people who wanted to see me, perhaps some of them also privately, but I always insisted on people who wanted to talk about my role in government, that those people needed to come to my office, except people that I was close to, of course.
Yes. Now,
maybe before you proceed. Now, you were dropped from cabinet at the end of October 2010, is that right?
Yes, Chairman.
Yeah. Do you remember around about what time, about when this approach was made to you by the Guptas and Mr. Tutuzane Zuma when they came to your office in relation to when you were dropped? Are you able to remember?
No, I think it was quite early in my...
after our appointment?
After my appointment.
Okay.
But the subsequent...
And your appointment was in 2009, is that right?
2009.
Yes.
I served for 18 months,
Yes.
about 18 months. I think it was the year 2009.
Yes.
And I think some of these approaches might have been in 2010.
Yes, okay. So on the occasion when you did meet with them in your office, Did they indicate what the purpose was for them asking for a meeting with you?
They were introducing their company, Computer Saharas.
Yes. So they were, they
just introduced.
They were just telling you what they are involved in. Yes, what they do.
Yeah.
And the meeting ended at that level. They didn't start talking about any future engagement in regard to your department and their businesses.
I can't recall.
You can't recall
whether they said they would seek other meetings in future, except that those subsequent requests for meetings indicated that I needed to see them. Were from emissaries, people who told me that the Guptas would like to see you.
Did they indicate whether they wanted you to go to their residence or offices, or they wanted to come to your office, or there was just no indication, there were just requests for a meeting?
I found it strange because when they made the appointment to see me, and I accorded them the respect to see them, they did it through my office. They called my office. So I didn't understand why other people who were not part of my office would want me to go and see them.
Yes, yes, yes. And you say there were quite a few of such requests, is that right? You can't tell how many, but quite a few.
I can't even tell who.
Or even who, yes. But you turned them down, all of them, those requests. And it was on the basis that if they wanted to see you, they must do as they had done before and just communicate with your office.
Yes, Chair.
Yeah. And you say it may be that some of those requests happened in 2010, but you are just not sure anymore.
I think it was in 2010.
It was in 2010. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Chair. You just indicated to the Chair that you can't say who the emissaries were. Do you mean that you do not know who they were, or are you not willing to disclose their identities?
No, I know who they are.
You're not willing to disclose their identities. Now, in your contact then with the emissaries, did they express to you what the Guptas had expressed as to the purpose of the meetings they were requesting?
No.
Did those emissaries impress upon you to honor the invitations at any point?
You know, those emissaries happen to be people that I'm close to, sort of. So, because I think they knew the people that I interact with on a social basis. So they would send somebody whom they know has got contact with me to say, these guys want to see you. And I would say no.
Okay, so so we understand, the emissaries were simply delivering an invitation, or were they impressing upon you to honor the invitation?
No, they were not impressing.
Okay. Then
they know a lot about me to know that they can't do that.
Apart from the fact that if they wanted to have a meeting with you, you wanted them to go through the normal channels and contact your office as they had done before. Was there any other reason why you might not have wanted to meet with them at that stage, or that was just the only reason?
Chairman, I need, if I see people, especially people who are in business, in my role as a minister, I think I should be careful how I do that. In the first place, I'd like to be with either my PA or my advisor or the DG of the party. More likely with my PA, so that there's somebody who takes minutes or notes, or who notes even if it's a verbal discussion, and there's no note taking, somebody who keeps a record of what the meeting was all about. So this meeting, for instance, that I'm talking about, there should be a record of it with them in the office there.
Okay, Okay, thank you.
And at that time, I must say that there isn't much that I knew about them that was negative. It's
Yes,
just
yes.
the question of the principle.
Yes, okay. To say they must go through the channels
Yes.
like everybody. Okay.
Thank you, Chair. Now, getting back then to that NEC meeting, to conclude on that, you indicated that nobody commented on Mr. Mbalula's disclosure, to your recollection, and neither did the president respond directly thereto.
What I recall is that the president did not touch on it.
Yeah.
It may have been that one or two people spoke about it, but my interest was that, or rather my curiosity was served by that declaration itself, that Mbalula made, that disclosure in that meeting. That I cannot forget.
You informed the chair that it was standard that at the end of the meeting, then the president would summarize the salient issues that arose in the course of the meeting. And the chair should accept that in this particular meeting, the president did summarize as was practice.
Yes, the president did talk at the end of the meeting and spoke to most of the things that the meeting addressed, but did not touch on this very serious matter.
Now, the president's failure to touch on the matter, as you term it, did it have any particular significance for you?
To me, it was a confirmation that the president was either uncomfortable to respond to this matter because there was credence to it, or that perhaps later on he would engage with Mbalula, and but the damage had been done. The whole National Executive Committee had listened and heard this, and it was never addressed again in future, so that all of us then, subsequent to that, lived with the reality that the president was accused in a meeting of improper conduct and did not deal with it.
Well, let me confirm this, because I wanted to confirm. Your understanding was that Mr. Mbalula's statement included or was criticism on the part of the president in relation to this situation where he got told by the Guptas that he was going to be made minister. Was that your understanding, that he was critical of whatever role the president might have played in a situation where ultimately the Guptas knew that he was to be appointed minister? Or was he simply criticizing or critical simply of the fact that the Guptas told him what maybe they shouldn't have told him even if they knew? Or is that difficult to say?
To me it was very clear that he was saying the president is derelict, or the president informed other people who informed him before the president actually informed him.
Yes.
And he was upset about that.
He was upset about it.
That the president did not inform him first before he informed other people.
Yeah.
And that these people who were the subject of gossip, or the subject of undercurrent talk, had so much influence on the president. So his declaration then, or his his claim then was actually saying that the president of the ANC and the president of the country did, or according to his knowledge, informed people before he informed him, and that really upset him.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Now, did you, after this NEC meeting, personally ever have discussions with any member or members of the NEC about what Mr. Mbalula had disclosed to the meeting?
I think we were all, as you say, Chairman, shocked. And we discussed it among ourselves. And we also discussed the fact that the President had not even alluded to it, let alone address it during his closing remarks. I can't recall who exactly I discussed with, but I know that I did discuss with Madula himself. And one of the members who sat next to me, we were discussing it as Madula was during the meeting of the ANC, and even after the meeting, to say it's shocking that the President has not addressed this thing that Madula said. So it really does lend credence to what Mbalula is saying, because I couldn't understand why Mbalula would allege such a serious thing and the ANC not get a response, because it is serious not only for Mbalula but for the NEC, which at the time was beginning to worry about some of these things as the large cabinet reshuffle of October 2010 did.
Well, I said earlier on that I would have thought that people who had this statement by Mr. Mbalula would have been shocked. At least I'm happy that you are saying, you were shocked to hear this, because it must have really been something very serious. But my concern continues to be, since this issue was raised at an NEC meeting, the seriousness with which it should have been taken should have led to a situation where subsequently, at least, it was brought back to the NEC to say to the NEC, on such and such a meeting, at such and such a meeting, Mr. Mbalula raised this issue. We were very concerned about it, and we want to hear what the President has to say about it, or maybe some of us, maybe the officials, have raised the issue with the President, and we are reporting back to the NEC as to what the position is. But from what you have told us, until you left the NEC, no feedback whatsoever was ever given to the NEC while you were a member of the NEC.
The first issue is on the shock.
Yes.
The shock was not so much about the revelation that he made, or the allegation,
yes,
or the claim that he made.
Yes.
Because people had always suspected that perhaps,
yes,
there is truth in what is being whispered.
Yes.
I think what may then have upset many people is the second question that we are raising about the President not having addressed the matter, which set tongues wagging after the meeting, and also that was a shock, and also concern later that this matter never arose again. And I think what I said earlier on, that what perhaps happened was that perhaps people spoke to the President on the side, or perhaps people spoke to Mbalula subsequently to that, But nothing happened, and even I, as a member of the National Working Committee, did not raise it again to say, President, there was this allegation made. Can you discuss it? Because also there, the agenda that is landed on the National Working Committee is processed through the officials, and they put the agenda, and nothing like that arose. And not that we were prevented from raising anything, but we did not raise it as well. So I think we were remiss as well, as members of the National Executive Committee, in not at the subsequent meeting of the National Executive Committee, not to ask the SG who puts that agenda to say, but at this meeting, at the past meeting of August, I think the next meeting would have been in December, or perhaps the following year. At that meeting, this was raised, and it's so serious as to have warranted a response from the President, which did not come about. And could we deal with it? Nothing like that happened.
Well, I think part of what you have just said is quite profound, because in the context of what this commission is about, it's quite important that various bodies, organizations, people, government functionaries, and so on, that everybody should look at what this commission is looking at in terms of state capture and being genuinely concerned about what may have happened. And I won't keep on saying, I keep on saying that I will only decide at the end of the whole thing whether there was state capture. I'm asked to investigate allegations of state capture, whether there is something that they could have or should have done that may have assisted in one way or another in maybe stopping what we now call state capture earlier than a certain time, and in doing so, we need people who are going to be able to say, I was part of this body, and maybe we didn't do something that we should have done, or maybe say, look, I can see that we should have done this and we didn't do it, and it's wrong that we didn't do it. Maybe here are the circumstances that may have led to us not doing something, but at this stage we are able to acknowledge that having applied our minds, yes, we should have done something, and we were remiss, we didn't do it. And I think that kind of approach would be very helpful. Obviously, one is not saying people must say they should have done something if they don't feel that they should have done something, but those who look at the whole situation, look at the opportunities that they may have had to do certain things, and are able to say, I think here I could have contributed, and I didn't. Maybe at that time the situation that was prevailing was such that the focus was on something else, I don't know, but I see that here I didn't do this and I could have done that. That's quite important.
Chair, yes, perhaps one of the reasons why this was so, I said earlier on that at the time that I had a meeting with the company of the Gupta family.
Yes.
I had absolutely no inkling that the things that unfolded later on would come to the point at which they came. Only later do we get to that point. Otherwise, we just took them as part of the business. Obviously, people who are in business are want to be close to the powers that be. And normally at events that we organize as the African National Congress, whether it's January 8th or something like that, or its elections or fundraising. The people who have lots and lots of money want to sit next to the president of the country, want to sit next to the minister of finance, want to sit next to the minister of this and that, the important minister. And in fact, they are allocated as such also, depending on the importance of their contribution. I don't know now that the legislation is changing in terms of disclosure, etc., for contributions, whether that will still be the case. But I think it is the case worldwide that people who have financial muscle, and I would do that myself if I had tremendous financial muscle, I would want to sit next to a president of the country, not because I want to influence the president to appoint so and so and so and so, but because the closer to the ear of the president, the better for me, not necessarily to do wrong things, but for my company, the image of my company, and also things that I might say that are not improper in any way. So I think that when the things that were happening initially, and we saw this happen, or these people being close to the president, I think earlier on during Mr. Manuel's testimony, there was an allusion to a former minister appointing one of the brothers as a part of Brand South Africa board,
yes,
and so on. So
yes.
So those people were part of society, normal business people, and so on. But only later did we realize that there was something really sinister afoot. And perhaps if this thing of Zoom, of Madula was just a first indication that something was wrong, that the president may have acted incorrectly. But it was not yet, to us at least, real evidence of state capture. It was beginning to give worries about that possibility. If people have got, and it was actually the first indication of worrying about this family, apart from things that were being whispered.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair. Now, if we could just go back very briefly, can you tell the Chair about the circumstances of your own dismissal and how you got to learn that you were being released from your post as Minister of Communication?
I was in Durban, Chairman, as I said, and I was called by somebody from the presidency to say that I need to go to Mhlambandlov, the president's residence, or State House, I can't remember which. And I indicated that I'm actually in Durban. It was in the morning, or Sunday morning, returning to Johannesburg, because I had been there for a weekend. And then I got another call. And I indicated that my flight was going to be in the afternoon. When I got to the VIP lounge, I got a call now from the president to say that I'm being redeployed, that the officials have decided to redeploy me as ambassador to Germany.
This was now the president speaking to you on the phone.
Speaking to me, yes.
Yeah. Mm.
And I told him, no, I'm not there. I think that's why you're relaying this message, but I will come there and try to see you, but thank you very much for your appointment. And I elected to go to the backbenches of Parliament, where I'd been sent by the ANC.
But when you arrived in Gauteng, coming back that same afternoon, did you go and meet the president and maybe hear more or on any of the subsequent
No, because
days?
he had already relayed his message. I didn't go and see him except Lutuli House. I saw him much later because I wanted to find out from officials, because he said it's officials who decided
Yes.
to do this thing. And one of them, I don't think I have the pleasure of saying who, but indicated that he knew nothing about it. And then I subsequently met the president, because I really wanted to find out what it
happened.
is that I would be redeployed, and I saw him in his office, and he mumbled something about the SABC, which I didn't quite understand. But I'd received some people, some gossip about people saying things about me and I told him this, that I understand you say that I run a private intelligence outfit and so on and so forth, but he said, no, it's not true. He thinks his matters are related to the SABC, but I didn't even understand what those matters were in relation to the SABC, which was under my watch as Minister of Communications.
So the purpose, when you saw him, you sought to understand the reasons why
Yes.
the officials decided that you should leave the portfolio of communication, Minister of Communications, and be given an ambassadorship. You sought to understand that from him.
Not necessarily the officials, but him, because he
was the president.
Yeah, he's the president. I mean, we serve at his pleasure.
Yes,
and
yes.
He's got the prerogative
Yes.
to appoint and dismiss ministers.
So you say you did ask him to try and understand, and he,
Yes.
in your words, mumbled something about the SABC. You don't understand what he was saying about it. You don't know what it was about
I
the
didn't
SABC.
understand what it was, frankly.
Yes, but you left it at that.
I left it at that and informed him that I was going to back to the.
We were going to go
Parliament
back to
as a
Parliament.
backbencher,
Yes, yes. You didn't take up the offer of
No.
being an ambassador. Okay, thank you.
At the time that the president informed you of your dismissal and suggested appointment to an ambassadorial position, did you question, or did you have any basis to question the truthfulness of the reason why you were being removed from the post of Minister of Communications?
I think this is what I've just been saying to the chairman, that I did try.
No, my question, if I may be clear, is at the time, did you question the truthfulness of the reasons that were being advanced?
No, I knew that there was no truth to those reasons.
Okay. Chair, I see.
So just to understand that answer, he gave you some answer relating to the SABC, which you didn't understand, but you are saying, as far as you were concerned, that was not the true reason. Is my understanding of what you are saying correct?
Yes, that was not the true reason.
Yes.
That was not the true reason.
Yeah. Now, did you know what the true reason was?
I suspected, because I did say to the chairman, to the commission, that I'd heard whispers about possible reshuffle in which I would be affected.
Yeah.
But I actually didn't believe those rumors, because I thought that I was doing quite well in my portfolio.
Yes.
I'd introduced many things. There was a stable board of the SABC.
Yes.
There were, of course, fights in that SABC between Ngubane and and the CEO of the SABC. There were, but generally there was stability in most of the portfolios that were under my watch there. Whether it was Centec or the SABC, there was general stability, and the things were beginning to take shape. There was, of course, an issue between me and, which had just arisen between me and the former Director General.
Of your department.
Of the department.
Yes.
And allegations that she made because I had suspended her on advice and also on consideration of the things that were alleged against her. And then, of course, she went to, the thing was before the Public Service Commission, and then she went to allege things that were not correct. And I went to the President also with respect to that, because the Minister of the Public Service is the one who is the custodian of all these things.
Yeah.
So, and they were taking time and so on. And at that point in time, I thought that, and we had so many things in line, and as far as the department is concerned, I think
I'm sorry, General. It may be that you need to speak a little louder, or maybe even
closer
to the. I
closer
think
to
the people at the back might not be hearing you.
No.
Okay. Yeah. Yes.
Yeah, I was saying that I thought I was doing well, and I was also receiving credit for the changes that were taking place in that department, but in relation to all the entities that resided under my watch.
Now, my question was whether you knew what the reason was, and you, in response, talked about suspecting. So maybe I should ask whether you knew the reason, or whether you had suspicions only of what the true reason was for your dismissal.
No, I didn't, because he did not provide the reasons. I did not know. I thought that he was creating space for somebody else to take my place.
Okay.
Because subsequent to that, many of the things that we had put in place with respect to governance of many of these state-owned enterprises or state-owned companies, changes began to take place as well. People were shafted. Members that had appointed to boards, people began to move the other appointments, whether it was Telkom or Centec or the SABC. Of course, the SABC remained, and Ben Gubane stayed there. But then I can only say with hindsight that
yes,
there are things that took place after my removal which actually confirmed that some of these were the reasons why I was removed.
Well, maybe you should articulate that. If you have looked at what has happened and it throws light, as far as you are concerned, on why you were dismissed, just articulate them to say, when I look at this and that, which happened after I had left, I think it throws light, and this is the light that it throws, if that is the position. If that's not the position, obviously don't say that. I just want to benefit from your own understanding of issues, or your own analysis of the issues, to say, this is why I believe I was dismissed. If you know, if you don't know, you say, look, I don't know, I can only speculate, and obviously speculation is not going to help.
Yes, that's what I said to the investigators or to the commission's evidence leaders.
Yes.
That I don't have, even though I'm a military man, I don't have any explosive stuff or bombshells.
Yes, yes.
But I can only surmise from what happened subsequently.
Yes, yes.
That this may have been the reason.
Yes.
These were the reasons.
Yes.
But I have absolutely nothing. And I must say also, since I was appointed, nobody came to me, both as chief of the SANDF or as Minister of Communications, nobody ever came to me with an idea that I should do something wrong.
Yes.
Nobody came to me with a proposal that I thought was not correct.
Yes, was improper.
Yes. And I dismissed them as so nothing.
Yes, yes.
The only time some people came to me while they wanted to buy shares from Eskom, from Telkom, and I told them, but Telkom is a listed entity. Why, if you made this proposal publicly, that if you expressed an interest, then government might even consider because it would shoot up the value. You have made a good proposal. It would shoot up the value of Telkom, and because of that value, you might even want to look at such a proposal. But you can't come and make a proposal to me as minister. It has got a board, although the government has got a significant stake in it, but it's a public entity.
Yeah. Okay. No. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Chair, it's after 4. With your permission, may I request that we finish? Yes.
Yeah. Let's try and finish.
You indicated to the Chair previously that after Mr. Madula had made this disclosure, none of the NEC members, to your knowledge, and you in particular, raised this issue again in the NEC or with the officials. You stated such. Yes. And you expressed a view that you may very well have been remiss in failing to do so.
Yes.
Now,
and also subsequent to that, the ANC, when we were acting in other capacities now, not in the capacity as members of the NEC, because when the issues of SABC Jonas and the 2015 dismissal from government of Nene, we wrote a memorandum to the ANC expressing disquiet at all these things, and and then subsequent to that, we were called to the ANC offices, and one of the things we were demanding was an inquiry, a commission of inquiry.
May I interject? I apologize, with your permission. Chair, what General Nyanda has just testified to relates to the documents that I said he brought this morning. Perhaps it might be an appropriate time to hand them in, and when he addresses those issues, because he would like to address himself to the documents.
That's fine. That's fine. That may be done, but I think he may proceed, because based on Mr. Masego's evidence, I think that I have a recollection of a memorandum that Mr. Masego handed up, which had a list of names of, I think, former ministers and directors general, if I'm not mistaken. I seem to think I saw General Nyanda's name there. General, was your name in that memorandum, or do you know anything about it? You are not sure about that one?
No, but we're talking about another memorandum, because the one from the DGs follows the one we wrote as senior commanders of Umkhonto Wesizwe, former commanders of Umkhonto Wesizwe, to the ANC.
Yes, okay. Let me
thank you, Chair. In fact, there are 3 documents that General Nyanda made available this morning. We have numbered them SN02 to SN07 based on the date of their production. and I
Okay,
beg
thank
leave
you.
to hand them in. And Chair, if you could include them in your exhibit, this is for the witness. If you could include them in your exhibit, we will update the Chair's index to reflect their inclusion.
I'm just thinking whether so maybe we should, or you have taken the liberty of marking them SNO2 up to.
Should take SNO8, Chair.
Okay, no, that's fine. Thank you. You
Chair.
may proceed, yeah.
Thank you. Now, you've been given a copy of these documents paginated SNO2 to SNO8, General Nyanda. The first is an email dated the 18th of March 2016, and according to this document, it appears to be an email from Mr. Mo Sheikh to yourself, and the subject matter is Memorandum from Senior Commanders and Commissars of, something seems to have been omitted there. You have the document.
Of the military wing of the ANC, Umkhonto weSizwe.
Okay. Now, can you explain, is this the memorandum you were referring to initially when you told the Chair, when you tried to distinguish between a document and the one that Mr. Maseko had referred to, which is the memorandum of the DGs?
Yes, but I was not actually referring to the memorandum. I was talking specifically, perhaps I'm jumping.
Okay.
I'm talking specifically about this issue of being remiss.
Yes.
Yes, just
because
talk about it, yeah.
At a subsequent to all this, the ANC lent us their ear in the form of the Secretary General, and actually invited everybody to give evidence, to bring evidence to it, instead of the commission that we were requesting.
Yes.
And I'm saying also, because I'm just to talk the question of being remiss, because even in that, I think it is only Masego who went.
Yes.
So it was also another missed opportunity, at least on my part. But
Yes.
here I was heading a group of people. On my part, because I also was privy to that NEC. Now, when the ANC says, come and tell us about this state capture,
Yes.
I also did not go back to the ANC to say, you remember SG at this meeting of the NEC,
Yes.
this was said, and I would like to submit that is one of the, it's evidence as well of this, the beginning of the state capture. If it was not state capture itself, the essence of it.
Thank you, General. Can we take these documents, I would suggest, in date form, so that we address them sequentially as they were produced? The first one you submitted is what appears as SN02, which is that email dated March the 18th, 2016. And a reading of that document would suggest that it covers a number of issues, including the removal of Mr. Nene, and that I find at paragraph 4, the rise of factions and slates within the ANC, and that is contained at paragraph 7. 11, various crises besetting the organization at paragraph 12, and undue influence on decisions of the state at paragraph 14. Now, of particular relevance to our conversation and the Gupta family, I seem to find these matters dealt with in paragraphs 7 to 9 of that document. Do you see that?
Yes.
Now, can you tell the Chair, therefore, what the issues are in relation to the Gupta family that you raised as a concern in this document?
Maybe before he does that, which is specific to the Gupta family, it might help if we were to give you an opportunity to say the thrust of this document that you sent to the ANC, insofar as it might relate to the work of this commission, was the following: 1, 2, 3, or whatever, and then you can focus after that on the specific one. But if the specific issue is actually the one that you want to focus on, it's fine.
The specific issue that this memorandum deals with is the appointment of an independent commission to look into the matters that arose out of Mcebisi's disclosure that he was called to Saxon Hold and told that he would become, that they would make him minister if he accepted 600,000 rands and
I think 600 million.
600 million.
Yes, yeah.
And did certain things. I can't think in terms of billions.
Yes.
So that was the thrust, to say we need to have a commission set up, because we thought that what was happening was undermining the African National Congress. And we were just concerned about our movement. That is why even you look at the resolution about Hollywood saying the ANC should call an independent commission, so on, to deal with these matters, because we were discussing these things on a daily basis until such time as Mcebisi made this claim. I can just give a background as well as I was driving from somewhere, Madula, Game Lodge, and when this news came, I actually called all these people that are signatories to this thing while I was driving. So I asked somebody else to drive. To call these people to say, we need to do something about this. And all these were very senior people in the ANC and veterans of the armed struggle. Because to us, this was now a public revelation, not in an ANC NEC as had happened in the past, but publicly a minister or a deputy minister disclosing what he disclosed, because his minister had been removed, somebody else put in place for 3 days, and then subsequently a redress sort of that situation when Pravin was then appointed. So we were saying this is a worry to us with respect to what is happening in government, and also with respect to what is happening in the African National Congress. You will recall, Chair, that there had been elections, local government elections in 2014.
No, 2014 was national.
The previous year,
2016 was local government elections.
20, is it 20?
Minister Nene was dismissed on the 9th of December 2015.
Yeah.
The local government elections were in August, I think, 2016.
2016. In 2014, that the ANC's majority was reduced significantly, and we were worried about that.
Yes.
Yeah. And so we were penning this because we knew that, or we thought that there were problems in the African National Congress of factionalism and so on and so forth. And we address these issues again there in this. But
yeah, I see that the memorandum is dated 18 March 2016.
2016.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. You have covered what you think is important for us to highlight in this memo.
Yes.
Okay.
If I may read from the memo at paragraph 8, and please correct me if I make a mistake. and in the context of the offer made to Mr. Mbalula, the memorandum states, in the light of these revelations, we demand to know what role, if any, do the Gupta family play in influencing the appointment of ministers and to what end? Which other ministers have been approached by them in this manner? What private arrangements, if any, have been made with the Gupta family? What is their role in the appointment of board members of state-owned enterprises? Is the leadership of the ANC aware of these arrangements? On whose authority does the Gupta family act? So this would be a specific issue brought to the attention, or that was central to the memo that you submitted on the 18th of March.
Yes.
The document as currently appears before us seems to be an email from Mr. Mo Sheikh to yourself. Now, you speak of a memorandum. Can you explain the following? To whom specifically was this memorandum addressed?
It was addressed to the Secretary General of the ANC and the officials of the ANC. It went to them. I think Mo sent it to me, and I sent it to the SG of the African National Congress.
And the document would suggest at page SN04 that it is signed by yourself on behalf of the list of people set out there. So the document is yours, basically, on behalf of those people. Same document at page SN04.
Yes.
Now, can you confirm whether or not the Secretary General of the ANC did receive this memorandum?
I can confirm that, and I will also say, Chairman, that this document, somebody leaked this document to the media. So the Secretary General of the ANC, or rather the leadership of the ANC, were upset and reprimanded us when we met them about such a leak. So it was sent to them and received by them.
I suspect that the reprimand was about the leak and not about the step of writing, expressing your views in this memo.
The reprimand was about the leak, Chair.
Okay.
Okay. Now, following then receipt of that memorandum by the Secretary General, albeit the date is not clear, what did the Secretary General, to your knowledge, do about that memo? What transpired thereafter?
We did meet the leadership of the ANC. I think it was not just the Secretary General, but the officials of the ANC. I can't recall who was present in that meeting among the officials.
And when you say we did meet, do you recall who you were with?
A few people. I think Mo Sheikh was one of the people in that meeting. I think Ka Shabangu. Let me see, I'm of the people who. I think General Ngwenya, Nhlanhla Ngwenya. Commissioner Rasikhatla, Yaka Shabong, I've already mentioned, Ambassador Sheikh.
Okay.
I think I can recall those.
Now, you...
About 5 of us.
You submitted, as part of the documents this morning, an email yet again, which I've numbered SN05 to SN06. Could you explain to the Chair the relevance of that particular email? It's dated Sunday, April 3, 2016.
this email just talks to this meeting that we held with the officials of the ANC, and it also talks to that leak, the last paragraph of that page, SN05, where I say, comrades, as you know, our last memorandum was leaked to the media by one of us. We were correctly criticized for this reckless action. I appeal to you, please keep this communication confidential to ensure that no leak ensures. And it spoke to the findings of we were asking the president to go.
Can I draw your attention? You drew the chair's attention to the last paragraph on that page. Can I draw your attention to the paragraph before that one?
Yes, to say the president had agreed to meet us.
So is it correct to interpret this to mean as at April the 3rd, 2016, you were confirming that there has been an invitation to meet with the president on the matter that is reflected in your memorandum,
yes,
but the meeting was yet to be held?
Yes.
Now, was that meeting subsequently held, as a matter of fact?
My recollection, yes.
Do you recall what was discussed in that meeting?
I have here what I was going to say to the president.
Okay.
It is actually something, the notes that I prepared for that meeting.
Then
and did you actually say these things that you say in this document when you met with the president?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Is that the document then, that would be the third document in that series, Chair, paginated SN07 to SN08?
Yeah.
It's got a date there by a manuscript, 18/04/2016. Is that the document?
It was generated.
I see that it is addressed to the president.
Yes.
And at the third paragraph, they are numbered, but the third actual paragraph you state, or it states, we really appreciate the time and wish we could have interacted long before matters reach this state. Some of us have made such attempts to reach you. Now, whose handwriting is it at the top there, inserting the date 18/04/2016? Is the chair to understand that the date appearing there is the date on which you wrote this document, not the date necessarily on which you met with the president? You would have met with
the date on which this was generated from my computer.
Do you recall then, based on that date?
I can't recall the date that we actually met the president.
You don't recall?
Yeah.
Okay. Is there anything in particular? So is the chair to understand that these are then your notes of what transpired at that meeting?
Yes.
Would that be correct? In summary then, could you indicate to the chair what the key issues were that were discussed and their relevance to this commission?
No, I remember that it was going to be the president's birthday or somewhere there. And then we are saying there that we really are saddened by what has happened. And if I can just quote what I'm saying.
Yes, feel free.
Say, we come here rather with pained, heavy hearts, believing that our organization is on a slippery slope. This is not only from our own observation, but from what we also heard you say at the National General Council last year. There are people who believe it is beyond remedy. Some of us think it is still possible to cure its ills and nurture it back to health, in spite of that being a monumental challenge. We are prepared to be part of such an effort That will, however, require a complete detour from the practice of the past decade and a will from the leadership to unite with its best cadres and drive such an agenda. And then it goes into the resignation of Mcebisi Jonas.
You may read that as well. You may continue reading that into the record. Yes, please.
President, last month, after the statement by the Deputy Minister of Finance, Mcebisi Jonas, we addressed a memorandum to the leadership on that issue. We believe that the issue of the Guptas and the attendant corruption involving the state machinery, which was central to that memo, has evoked such resentment from many in our ranks and the wider society that the ANC is in danger of paying a huge price in future elections. We have since interacted with the SG and some officials and NEC members explaining the memo and signaling our intention to participate in the process that the NEC has decided in order to give our own evidence about what we know on the matter. We do not wish to rehash some of the issues we raised in that memo, safe to say that it, among other things, called for a special conference. We are not even sure that a special conference can resolve some of the many challenges we face, but we're shocked by the assertion by the SG that forcing the president to relinquish office would tear the ANC apart. We, however, wonder whose interest it would serve to tear the movement apart. We do not believe that you, President, would act in such a way as to deliberately wreck the movement in order to stay in power. That would be so un-ANC, but that is the impression we get when such statements are made. Things moved quickly since then. The Constitutional Court has now found that the President violated the Constitution, for which he has since rightly apologized. That may be okay with us, but that cannot be enough for the country's future. The ANC, through the SG, came out in support of the President, and the SG repeated the same assertion he made to us in the discussion in the memo. All findings by the Constitutional Court set precedents. So too do the actions of those fingered in relation to those findings. Are we saying that all future adverse findings against incumbents will be satisfied by a mere apology? Are we not, in so doing, setting precedents for similar future conduct with which incumbents will expect to be satisfied by a mere apology? Are these the standards by which we want our hard-won democracy to be measured? Is it not a better response to take full responsibility and set an example that such adverse findings in future have more serious consequences? We are therefore of the opinion that more drastic decisions should have been taken on the Constitutional Court ruling on the Nkandla matter. We agree with the Isitalo and the Comrade Kathrada that our country would be better served where the President would relinquish office as an example for those who follow. This would put the country on a high moral pedestal and be an example on future leaders that there is a price to pay for such breaches. The President would set a good example for the ANC and the country. The opposite is the case were this not to happen. It would open the door to impunity. And we do not believe that the President would want that to result from his actions. We do not view this as punishment for the President, but as a rich example to of the respect he would leave for governance and the rule of law. I don't know whether I must go on.
Well, if you think what we have read captures the important points, that's fine. But if you think there's still something in terms of what we haven't read that you want to capture, you can read it.
I think it does.
It does. Okay.
Thank you, General. Now, this an interpretation that this is a recordal of the meeting you had with the president would be correct.
Yes.
Now, who besides the president was present in that meeting, you said? Apart from your delegation, who did you, who?
I can't recall.
Were any
part of the officials? I think Dr. Mkhize was one of the people that I can recall, or the DSG of the ANC.
At the time. Now, the document starts with salutation, President. Was this delivered to the President himself at the time?
Yes.
This document?
Yes.
So in other words, did you come to the meeting with it?
Yes.
And then you handed it over to him?
Yes.
And then you discussed?
Yes.
Okay.
No, we discussed. These were my notes, but we left them with the copy.
Okay, understood.
Okay.
So you discussed the notes as the issues that are raised in this document.
Yes.
And I'm sorry, are we to take it that the sentiments expressed in this document by yourself reflected the sentiments of everybody that was part of your delegation when you met the president?
Yes.
Yes. And maybe a wider group than just those who came to the meeting in terms of your delegation? In other words,
Yes.
There was a wider group behind this?
Yes.
Okay. And that group, did it include the individuals that are listed in the other memorandum that we dealt with, that in SN02?
Yes.
It included them?
Yes.
But much more, or just them?
I think by then we had expanded because following
Your first
our
memo?
intervention, or that memorandum, which was made public, as I said, leaked, and we discussed with the ANC. Other people, other former DGs, I remember, that called me and said they want to, why don't we take this matter to the people who are serving currently, because ministers act through their directors general.
Yes.
And that it may be a good thing for us, because these were just commanders, these were veterans of MK.
Yes.
Some of them were DGs before.
Yes.
Somebody came with the idea that why don't we form now a DGs group which would then concentrate on what is happening now in government, because we had so many people who had served the ANC and had, in our view, the correct mindset and were serving government and not our own interests, that we now need to bring that back to the people who are serving currently. And they wanted us to form this, which was then the basis of another group that subsequently was formed.
Okay.
Thank you, Chair. Now, General, did the President address any of the issues that you brought forward to his attention at this meeting?
Well,
at the time?
The President and they were very unhappy about our call for him to relinquish office. And according to the President, he's serving his term until the ANC, because he's elected by the African National Congress, ANC, by the branches of the African National Congress.
And did you specifically bring to his attention your concerns regarding I'll say the so-called influence of the Gupta family on him?
Yes, we did.
And did he deal with that aspect in the meeting?
No. I think that meeting really did not address many of these issues as it should have done. The officials just decided that they were going to follow up on the matters that we're raising and come back to us. And they did take note of the concerns that we have and did inform us that the current NEC has got a mandate from the previous conference of the ANC.
Okay, I just want to make sure I understand what happened. The meeting that we are talking about, which involved a delegation of which you were part and met with the president, did it meet with the president alone, or were there officials of the ANC at that meeting as well?
The one of the relating to the memorandum.
Yeah, well, the one relating to the letter that, well, it's a documented letter which you said reflects your notes at the meeting.
Yes.
Yeah, that meeting.
It's the one that I say, my recollection is that there was the Treasurer General of the ANC of the time, Dr. Mkhize, and the Deputy Secretary General of the ANC.
Oh, your recollection is that there were those, it was the president plus those two officials of the ANC.
Yes.
Okay. Now, the president, you said, were in regard to your suggestion or demand or request or of your delegation that he should relinquish office, responded on what you have said on the basis that he had been elected by branches of the ANC. I thought the office that you sought him to relinquish was that of president of the country and not president of the ANC.
Yes.
So did he address the issue of relinquishing the office of president of the country?
No.
He did not address that one. Or did he misunderstand and thought that you were asking him to step down as president of the ANC?
You know, I can't recall even the issue of the elections of the president. I can't recall whether it was him or the deputy secretary
who addressed
that.
Yes.
The officials who addressed that.
Yes.
Issue.
But what are the issues that you can remember were dealt with or responded to by the president himself in relation to the issues you raised? If there are issues that you recall, he dealt with this and this is what he said, or you can't tell, he might have said something or another official might have said, you can't tell who said what.
The main thing was the issue of, well, the Constitutional Court findings,
yes,
as well as the SABC Jonas issue,
yes,
which they said they were going to set up a commission to look into, and that all these matters were going to be looked into by the leadership of the ANC.
Or they supported they were happy with going along with the idea of a commission.
Yes, no, not the commission.
Yeah.
They set up their own commission.
Or their own party commission.
Party commission.
Oh, okay. Yes. So the meeting ended on the basis that they said all these issues would be dealt with in that party commission.
Yes, Chair.
Okay. And what was the attitude of your delegation to this way of dealing with issues, namely the suggestion of a party commission?
We were unhappy about it. We were unhappy about it, but
yes, you waited to see.
We said it's fine, and we asked those who had evidence, like Mr. Masego, to go before that, to go to the ANC and give that evidence, and Jonas, who had concrete evidence, and give that
evidence
report. Their reports to the commission.
Okay, thank you.
And thank you, Chair. For the record, in your memorandum at paragraph 16, you record the following. I can quickly read it into the record. Accordingly, we call on the leadership of the ANC to establish an independent commission of inquiry composed of eminent persons within the ANC and civil society to investigate all claims of undue influence, especially by the Gupta family on the ANC and on the state, end of quote. When you say to the chairperson that the meeting ended on an understanding that a commission of inquiry was going to be established, was it to look into these issues that you have raised in your memorandum specifically?
No. In fact, I think there were other interactions with the ANC leadership that are not spoken to by these documents. The point at which the ANC then committed to have its own internal investigation and to get people, and where they told us that we needed to get, I think that decision in fact was taken even without the president, if I recall, because it was at the boardroom of the Secretary General, where we were told that there's going to be an the ANC is going to set up its own inquiry, and that members must need to come to that inquiry. That's what I said we were also unhappy about, but we accepted because this is our organization. And we wanted as much as is possible to cooperate with it without necessarily upsetting it, because the other things we were looking to, we wanted a national consultative committee who was going to negotiate many things, and there were other subsequent meetings which we held. I was also part of interactions with the NEC, where the president was with the stalwarts and veterans, not this grouping, neither also the DGs, stalwarts and veterans, where they gave us audience to deal with the matters that are related to this.
Yes.
All these things.
Now, earlier the chair referred to a memorandum submitted into evidence by Mr. Maseko. Chair, for record purposes, it's in Exhibit E, which is Mr. Maseko's bundle, in particular at page 80. Now, this is dated the 22nd of April 2016. What I have done, General Nyanda, is to put Mr. Maseko's bundle next to you. Chair, I have a copy here for your reference should you so require, but
Yeah,
I don't expect to be long on this.
Yeah, no, that's
Thank you,
fine.
Chair. Now, this document at page 80 of Mr. Maseko's Exhibit E is dated the 22nd of April 2016. And if you look overleaf at page 81, it is signed by a number of people, I think a grouping broader than your first memorandum, and your name appears, the penultimate name in the first column on that page. You confirm that?
Yes.
Now, it starts off by saying, we, the undersigned, are former director generals in the post-apartheid South African government. Were you a director general at any point?
A director general of a special type.
I guess chief of staff is taken to be at that level or not? You were chief of staff in the...
I was the commander of the South African National
Commander,
Defence Force.
yeah. Is that what you are talking about when you say Director General of a special kind?
Yes, because I remember one time the former President Thabo Mbeki saw me at the birthday of the ANC in Durban after the event. I think it was the 90th birthday in Durban. And then he says, "Why are you a chief?" I said, "No, but you invited DG." He says, "But you are a DG of a special type." So, and even when I retired, I could not be appointed a director general because it's a special category of director general.
Okay.
And now, this document is dated the 22nd of April 2016, as I said. The last paragraph on page 80 states, we therefore call for the establishment of an independent public inquiry, then in terms of section 4.1 of PAJA. You see that? So by the 22nd of April, you are still calling for an establishment of the inquiry?
As part of this grouping, yes.
As part of this grouping.
Yes.
I see that letter is addressed firstly to the Minister of Finance, Minister Pravin Gordhan, the Minister of Public and Service and Administration, Mr. Matlodi, and the President of the Republic of South Africa and the Deputy President. Was this particular letter delivered to any one of the addressees? To your recollection?
Addressees which?
The Minister of Finance, Minister Pravin Gordhan, Minister of Public Service and Administration, Mr. Matlodi. At the top there, page 80, they are listed.
Yeah, I was told so. I have no
personal knowledge of that.
I think Mr. Masego covered it.
Now, you personally, or the grouping that you had been dealing with thus far, did you receive a response to this letter at all in writing or in any form?
No.
Did you make submissions any to the subsequent inquiry that was established by the ANC on matters that you had requested that be investigated?
You're not talking to this.
I'm just saying generally, following your request.
No, I did say that perhaps because the ANC one, I said earlier on that there was nothing that I could offer any inquiry or any commission because I was never approached to do anything untoward.
So you didn't have any personal knowledge on those matters and you didn't submit any evidence?
I did say that, I said also that in relation to the matter of Madula, perhaps I should have gone back to that inquiry, which was an internal one, to say, yes, you want an inquiry, yes, I know the Madula said this thing and you never addressed it.
But you're confirming that you did not bring that particular Mr. Madula's issue to the inquiry's attention? Okay.
No.
Now, is there anything else relevant to terms 1.1 and 1.3, as you have read them in the terms of reference regarding appointments and dismissals, that you would like to bring to the chair's attention that perhaps we overlooked and did not deal with today?
No, I think I've already alluded to those.
You have covered everything. Chair, and unless there are questions from you, that is the testimony of General Nyanda.
General, thank you very much for coming to assist the Commission. We really appreciate it. If we need you to come back, I have no doubt that you will have no hesitation to come back and assist us. But thank you very much. And unless there is something else you want to say, I will be ready to excuse you. But I think you want to say something. And I must give you a chance to say it. Maybe when you say it, I must just say this. If you are able to encourage any of the other people who were part of the groups of which you were a member that expressed certain concerns about issues of state capture, if you want to take this opportunity to encourage them to come forward, that would be highly appreciated, and any other matters that you would like to deal with as we close.
Thank you, Chair. I will encourage others to come on board. Obviously, I support the Commission because a lot of what has happened has affected many of us. That is why we interacted with the movement the way we did. And I sit here now talking about things that are internal to the organization, meetings of the African National Congress, where certain things that may be germane to the inquiry are dealt with, but things that are internal to the organization. But I must say that this issue of Madula was in the public domain even before it. After it came, it was leaked somewhere to the public, and that therefore I don't feel constrained to to talk about it. The ANC also has encouraged members of the cabinet, members of government, public servants, ANC members who may be au fait to things that they think are relevant in the State Capture Commission to come on board and give evidence to the Commission. So I think it is in that spirit that I come to the Commission, because my organization as well supports the Commission in my understanding. Thank you.
No, thank you very much. I certainly believe that the governing party supports the Commission. I believe the government supports the Commission. I believe many civic organizations and many people in the country are very supportive of the Commission. But thank you very much once again for coming forward.
Thank you.
Thank you. You are excused. We are going to adjourn now. Tomorrow we will start at the usual time, namely 10 o'clock. So we'll adjourn for the day. The Commission adjourns.
Thank you, Chair.
All right, well, there you have it. That's the end of the inquiry looking into allegations of state capture taking place in Parktown, Johannesburg.